A former championship head coach of the Boston Celtics, a longtime NBA player from back in the day when I was watching him play for the Knicks, and one of my favorite people. I'm so happy to have you here, Doc.
Oh, Rich, good to see you.
Good to see you here on this program. So, I know I definitely want to talk a little bit of Clippers basketball.
Well, we could do that.
But I
know something about that.
Well, I know you know a lot about that. Your Chicago Bears, I want to hit you up on right away.
Yeah.
You are a big-time Bears fan, correct, Doc?
Yeah, I've been a Bears fan since birth.
So who's your favorite player? Who's your favorite?
Gale Sayers.
End of story, right?
Yeah, it's not even Walter Payton would be right there. And
Sure.
my third, surprisingly, I don't know if surprisingly, I love Jim McMahon because
sure.
I just liked his energy. So those are my three.
So Gale Sayers is a guy that you were watching as you were a kid growing up?
Yeah, I remember watching them. Actually, they played in Wrigley Field, which people don't remember.
Sure.
They played a lot of games in Wrigley Field earlier on, and then obviously moved to Soldier Field. I think it was renovation or something going on at that point. And it was my dad. My dad was a gigantic Bear fan, and so as a kid, that was the only thing you could watch. By the way, back then, there was only one channel you could watch, and that was the Bears. And so you just loved him. He was really young. I was young. And then Brian Song, the movie comes out, and which still makes you cry.
Sure.
That's
James
one of those
Caan and
James Caan, Billy D. Williams,
Sure.
and it took off from there.
Doc Rivers, the head coach of the Los Angeles Clippers, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. So what do you think is going on with the Bears this year, Doc?
Identity crisis. You could see it. They're good in some games. Some days they're bad. They started out like they were going to be a decent team. No, they lost to Buffalo the first game. They've always been a defensive mindset team, and now you can see over the last year or two they've kind of flipped offensively, and the defense is catching up. So that's what's going on.
And, I mean, so many people point the finger at the quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, you're a former point guard.
Yeah.
You know that, obviously that it's more than just whoever's got the ball in their hands. But where do you stand on the Cutler issue, Doc?
I'm back and forth on it. I actually like him. His body language and all that. It's what he is. It's who he is. You can't change a person's body language, So if you can't, you just want him to be a good player. Listen, it's so easy to point at the quarterback, and it's so easy to point at the point guard, and it's so easy to point at the coaches, because that's the way it is. The guy that usually gets paid the most money gets the most heat, and that's the way pro sports work. But in football, it's a team game, and the team has to play better. It's not just one guy.
Well, but also as a coach, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Have you ever had a guy where their body language has been off on the team, and that this person is viewed as a leader by the media, by the fan base? Have you gone up to a player like that and said, hey, you need to...
Yeah, I've had several guys like that. Rondo. He was good. But if you looked at his face sometimes, you didn't think he was in a good mood or was happy. Paul Pierce was that way. You remember early on in his career, people always thought Paul was surly. Paul's a great leader. He's a great leader. But he just doesn't show you the emotion all the time.
So you said something?
Oh, you say something, but at the end of the day, what I learned is that's what he is. The players know he leads, and as long as the players are fine with the way he leads, then he's a good leader. But you do follow your leader, and you do follow how they look, and that's the only time I would talk to any of our guys. Sometimes you're upset. Sometimes you're upset at yourself, and you may hold it in, but it looks like to your team like you've given in or you're down or something like that. And that's where you need them to change that part. But don't change. You can't change a person in who they are.
And when you watch some of these Bears games, do you sometimes watch it as a former professional athlete and a head coach of professional athletes as opposed to just being a fan?
I try, but I'm a fan, and fanatical is what fan means, So
that's right.
I mean, it's amazing. And with Cutler, late in the games, you're like, don't turn it over, don't turn it. I mean, you're sitting there saying that to yourself. So it's hard. It's hard to be a parent of a kid that's playing sports.
Sure.
And it's hard to be a fan. I've always said that, and that's why you know, because I love sports and because I'm a fan of Tiger Woods, you know, when he plays and the way he's been driving the ball, I'm sitting there going crazy because you want the people that you like to do well, you know, and so it's hard.
Doc Rivers, the Los Angeles Clippers coach, is right here in studio. We're going to take a 60-second break. When we come back, it's also hard being a disciplinarian from this seat too, Coach. I've got a producer who's been benched for the first hour of this program. I'm feeling it right now. I'm feeling the pressure.
You have to do what you have to do.
Okay.
What's good for the team.
Okay. Well, I want to get more into that as well as your time in New England, where obviously you spent some time with Belichick and the Patriots and whatnot. Doc Rivers, the coach of the Los Angeles Clippers on a 5-game win streak, fresh off a 6-1 road trip, right here live in studio on The Rich Eisen Show. Welcome back to The Rich Eisen Show. We're in studio with the coach of the Los Angeles Clippers, Doc Rivers, here, talking a little bit of hoops, talking some football. And we could not help but notice last night, Doc, that Gronk and Jonas Gray and a handful of the Patriots who were in town to take on the Chargers later on Sunday. They were at your game last night.
Well, that's my other team. You know, having lived in Boston for 9 years, you know, I got a chance to go to a lot of games. I would go to sit in Belichick's box. And, you know, obviously had a relationship with Bill.
Yeah.
It was cool last night, though. I noticed them late in the game.
You didn't know they were coming?
No, I didn't know they were coming. They called, and my assistant got tickets. But after the game, I had them come in the locker room. And I had all these. We have a ton of Cowboy fans on our team. Chris Paul, DJ, Mike Woodson. I don't get it, but they are.
They're all Cowboy fans.
Yeah, I don't understand that for the life of me, especially with Thursday coming up.
That's going to be big.
Yeah, that's going to be big. And I told all the Cowboy, I walk in the locker room, said, Cowboy fans, stand up. They all stand up. I said, I have a gift for you. And I had Gronk and all those guys walk in. I said, this is a real team, guys. This is a real team.
And what did Gronk say? Did he say anything?
Yeah, the first thing he said, who's a Cowboy fan? You know, and only the way Gronk could do it.
Yeah.
And I found out later Gronk and Justin Bieber was hanging out in the locker room.
Yes.
I didn't even know that part.
Well, so. I don't know if Bieber hung out with the Steelers the night before they lost to the Jets. Some people think that what we're watching right now, Gronk and Biebs hanging out, that this is a problem for the Patriots this weekend.
What my concern is Monday night. You know, Gronk and Bieber out in L.A.
Post game. You were concerned about the post game.
Yeah.
So what were your chat? I know Belichick's a private guy. You are too. But if there's anything you could let us in on your chats with Belichick, championship coach to championship coach in that town that was lit up with championships for a full decade and now beyond.
Well, I was there in a great time. You know, the Bruins were great, the Red Sox were great, the Patriots were great.
Yeah.
Bill and I talk more about team building a lot, and I'm not going to get deep into what we talked about.
Sure.
But, you know, I like coming around. I think football is more advanced because they have so many more guys. And the execution in football, and I always liken it in basketball, like if we could execute that way. You know, you think about it in football, if you blink wrong, it's an offsides. There are 11 guys. And I show football sometimes to my guys because I'm thinking they have 11 guys that are moving exactly at the right time, only have 5, and we can't do it. You know, now Bill always thought it's harder because it's continuous movement. You know, I remember him saying, I don't know how you do it. There's no huddles. You know, there's no timeouts. And I actually told him once, I said, there actually is. Every time there's a free throw, you have a chance to call a play. Every time you're taking the ball out of bounds, that's your huddle. You know, so you have more huddles in a game than you actually think, and that's the times you have to execute. But I'm so into their execution, and probably the Patriots may be the best team to watch in doing that. So it was a great lesson for me more than anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, situational football, the Patriots are top-notch team.
They're the best, and their game planning is great.
Week to week, it's different.
It's amazing.
That's why Jonas Gray can have 201 yards rushing one week, and then, well, he had none the next because he was late. He was delayed.
Yeah, you know, the other thing is everyone's over themselves. Like the 2 coaches in sports who do that better than anyone else is Greg Popovich. He gets his entire team to buy in, and everyone is over themselves. And then the Patriots. And that's obviously what all of us coaches try to do as well.
Doc Rivers, the coach of the LA Clippers, here in studio. What is it like motivating the 21st century professional athlete? What is the challenge?
It's not as hard as you think. And I'll say this, the great ones are easy. You know, I think people think the more money you make, the harder to motivate, and I've always disagreed with that. The great players are great because they want to be motivated and they want to be great. And they get every night that they play, it's on them. So those are the easy ones. It's the average guys. It's the guys, the minimum guys, because they either don't want to buy in because they want to prove to you that they're better than what you're playing them or the minute you're playing them. And then the average guys, some of them, you know, they settle. They like where they're at. They're play safe. You know, I've always thought the great ones, the Kevin Garnetts, the Paul Pierce, the Rondos, the Blakes, the CPs, the DJs, they want to be great every night. And so they want their teammates to be great too. And I've always thought those are the easier guys.
Before I let you go, I want to talk briefly about your team. They're the LA Clippers. How are things different this year under the Ballmer administration for you in Los Angeles, Doc?
Well, it's calmer. You know, just to say that. We didn't really have a firestorm last year until the playoffs. So, you know, my first year was not a hard year with Donald Sterling. Things went pretty well. The difference, I would say, is this. You know, if you need something, you can get it with Steve. Steve wants to win. And he wants to do whatever it takes. And that doesn't mean throwing cash around and wasting money, but that means if you need to do something, he wants to take care of it. And he really is in pursuit of a first-class organization. I think that's over everything what he wants to do.
When I told you this off the air, I'll say it here on the program as well, and I told you how you handled that, as you put it, firestorm. What you did and how you handled it was so inspirational, and it was so perfect. But I can only imagine as you were going through it, you're a human being just like everybody else. What was that like? Who did you draw upon?
Well, I drew upon my parents. And my thought was you can't be a victim, number one. I've always believed that. My dad drilled that into me, no victims in this house. So don't be that. And my biggest thought was to protect the players, you know, like it was your family. My fear was that I was going to say something stupid, and I'm sure I did in that period. But my biggest fear was that I didn't want my players to become the story. You know, I've always felt like the guy that does the crime never has to respond. It's strange that way. People wait for the person that has been prosecuted to respond. Like it was funny. Everyone was, what are the Clippers going to do? And I kept thinking, well, what did we do wrong? Why do we need to do anything? But that's the way life is. And my concern was I didn't want anyone to say something where now they're the bad guy. I wanted to keep the light on what happened on that person. But I wanted our guys to function.
The LA Clippers are on a nice streak right now. Where do you see your team right now in the grand scheme of things in the marathon that is an NBA season?
Yeah, the marathon and the West. The West is hard. I mean, we've won 7 out of 8, I think, or 6 out of 7, and we didn't game but one game.
That's right.
I mean, so it's just the West. The West is hard. It's a long season, and there literally are 8 teams that can win it that are all in the West.
Right.
And that means it's going to be a hard season.
Well, you're one of them. Thanks for coming in, Doc. I appreciate it. Good luck to your Bears, certainly with CP3 and everybody else in that spot.
Thanks.
Rooting for the Cowboys on Thursday night.
Well, that's all right. The Bears will win.
Okay, there you go.
Almost a guarantee.
Oh, but you know better. Yeah. Doc, thanks for coming in.
Oh, thank you.
That's Doc Rivers of the Los Angeles Clippers.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.